I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, which for me is the Larrakia people. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. I acknowledge the profound impact of domestic violence on individuals, families, and the wider community in Australia. I support initiatives aimed at preventing domestic and family violence and creating a space where everyone feels safe and supported. Finally, I wish to acknowledge that we all come from different places and have different circumstances. I respect and welcome our collective differences, and I strive to create a space where all voices are heard and valued, and where everyone feels comfortable in engaging and participating. And I hope you'll join me with that today. I will ask you to turn off your microphones for today's session. There will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end, but if you could keep your microphones off for the rest of the time, that would be great. If you can turn on your video, it would be great to see you. I know some of you will be eating your lunch, but that is completely okay. And it is really nice for presenters to see faces on the screen as well. Today's session will be recorded and will be made available on the Anima Co YouTube channel in the upcoming weeks for those who would like to listen again or share it with your friends and colleagues. You can check out our other speakers there too. This is our final Lunch with Leaders event for the year, but we will be back in the new year. For those who are not currently on the email distribution list, you can be added by reaching out to me directly or by contacting nabs@af.gov.au. For those who would like to get your dates in early in the calendar for next year, I will be putting the schedule up on the Animico website, so you will have a chance to get it from there in the next few months if you want to check in at the website and just have a look. There will be a survey at the end of today's event. We really value your feedback and suggestions about what's worked for you, what you'd like to see us improve, and what future speakers you'd like us to get for you. As I'm planning next year right now is a good time for you to get your ideas into me. We are recording today's session, as I mentioned, so if you do have a problem with that, please let me know and we will see what we can do to sort that out for you. Now I'm going to hand over to Dante St. James, who is our presenter for today's event. Dante is one of Australia's most sought after speakers and trainers on the digital economy and social media. I'm going to leave it to him to introduce himself more fully. Welcome, Dante. It's great to have you again.
Thanks, Anne. Oh, you make me sound like a superhero. I love the sound of that. One of the most sought after. I don't know who wrote that. Some idiot bald guy with a green shirt, I assume, wrote that one. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining me today. I know Friday is a hard one to do because it's that time of the week where the energy levels are really low, and we've dared to do this over lunch, just as you're about to have the big sugar rush and sugar crash. So hopefully I can get everything to you before the sugar crash comes. But today, if you were in the last one we did, we were very much around sort of looking at some of the possibilities of AI. And today I'm going to show you the how of how to do it. So we're going to look at a few tools, a few ways you might be able to integrate some of these lovely tools into your life. And I can't say lovely tools because they've certainly been very helpful for me. For some people, they are dead set terrifying. And I absolutely acknowledge that sometimes we look at it and go, where is this all going? What is it all doing? And I remember 30 years ago saying the same thing about the internet when, like the call center that I was casually working in while I was at university suddenly implemented email. We didn't have this thing where we suddenly were sending around cards with messages to other people around the business. We just emailed them, and it was both terrifying and exciting, but I think overall we saw the efficiency gains that came with it. So hopefully that's the way we're going to look at AI tools today, particularly these ones we're looking at. These ones are not looking to replace jobs. These ones are not going to form the next artificial general intelligence that will take over the world and destroy us all. These are the ones that are here to be partnered with people. And that's the essential tool here, is actually your input. And you'll see how that works. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that and how we can be a bit more mindful about the way we're using AI. So we're going to look at some of the platforms. I'll tell you a few little things, like I like to call it the low-hanging fruit, the little easy things that can help to sort of speed up in your day. Some of those bigger things too, the things that you go, wow, I wish I could just hand that off to someone else one day. Well, maybe after today you can. And we'll look at some really fun, creative things as well, which I've been sort of implementing a lot in my content creation on LinkedIn, and also with things like slide decks and those sorts of things. I have lots of things on my plate. And knows this. I do a bit of this, I do a bit of that, I do a bit of everything. So I've got my own businesses in Queensland, New South Wales, and training businesses in the Northern Territory. I consult to a lot of people and contract to a lot of businesses like Meta, the Darwin Innovation Hub, Paspalis Capital, and also to the Business Enterprise Centre. Current chair of Territory Proud, if that means anything to anyone in the Northern Territory. That's a buy local group, an association, and various others. One of the things I was very fortunate in the last year to pick up was a top voice badge on LinkedIn. There's only 2 of us in the Northern Territory, so I felt like that was a pretty, a 1 in, 250,000 chance to get that. So I was really, really chuffed to get that. What we'll look at first, though, is these platforms. And when I say platforms, we kind of break them into a few different bits. There's the big ones that you may have heard of, the ChatGPTs. Then there's these local models, and we're starting to see these creep through a bit more, where they're actually on your phone. I've got the one of the later Google Pixel phones, and it has a built-in AI, much like you would have if you have an iPhone. You've got built-in Siri, and that doesn't run out on a server somewhere. It runs inside your phone. So when we say local models, we mean things that are, a little bit more limited, but you don't have to install them, they're there. And then there's these specialist apps. So the big ones are really, they run as apps on your phone or your computer. ChatGPT, you might have heard of Google Gemini or Claude or Perplexity, any of those ones. Very powerful, very useful, really quick, but you do need to be aware of some of the security loopholes in there. For example, this is not a place for you to be loading up, especially on the free versions of any of these, loading up the company reports and loading up people's personal details and that sort of thing. So you need to be aware that when you're sending those things off to these other places, you don't necessarily know where all that stuff is going and who's going to use it. It also requires the internet. You find that I use these tools very heavily, and I'm really happy when I'm on a Qantas flight and I have Wi-Fi in the air. Not so happy when I hop on Virgin, hoping it's got Wi-Fi, and they tell me, oh no, not this flight. We only have the entertainment channels, and I'm like, well, there's only so many times I can watch The Big Bang Theory. So yeah, I'd really like an internet connection, please. And they have things like I said, ChatGPT, Copilot, if you use the Microsoft versions, those kind of things are very famous ones. The local models you run on your own device. You don't necessarily need an internet connection. So that's one way I've got around this. When I need to do brainstorming, I wanted to, put some ideas together for something I've been writing, but I'd like some different options of how to maybe output it. I don't need an internet connection to run these local models on my computer, but I won't joke around here. There's a learning curve. You really have to learn to know what you're doing. So that's where the geeks living in the basements of their parents' house at the age of 40, they're the ones that are really good at working this stuff out. I'm not expecting you to be anything like that to work those out, because you have a life, right? These are the most secure models because nothing ever leaves your computer. It stays within the computer. It doesn't go out to the internet. And it can be integrated with almost anything. You can set up a little local model on a very small computer that runs the smart home setup in your home. It can run all manner of things and integrate with all sorts of systems on your computer without you having to connect to the internet. So that can be very useful for that. But like I said, it's going to take you some learning. The specialized apps are where a lot of really fun things happen. Things that build design graphics and images like Canva, building slides for presentations like Gamma that you're going to see very shortly. It can automate processes like Zapier, Make.com, and N8N. They do very specific things. They use most of the time they use the power of those big platforms, but they apply it to a very specific problem to solve. So we're going to look at a couple of those things. So the big ones and the specialized apps are mainly what we're going to look at, because teaching you how to install AI onto your computer is definitely not something you want to do on Friday during lunch. So ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, Claude, Perplexity, some of those ones which are very much more the famous ones, the big systems. And then we look at Gamma, which is all about making presentations. Canva, which you probably know from putting together templates for graphics and invitations and posters and whatnot. And then one called napkin.ai, which is about visualizing data. And you'll see what I mean by that very shortly. So I'm going to go live. We're going to pop out of here and we're going to have a look at something like ChatGPT. Now, the best thing that ChatGPT does do is not this blank screen where you go, ask anything. ChatGPT works best when it already knows your context. when you are training it to do specific things that you do over and over and over. One example of that is when people ask me, how do I manage to put together all these posts all the time on my LinkedIn that are constantly going out 4 times a day? It's because I have an assistant over here called Dante GPT. I was really creative with that name. And that's been trained specifically to write like me, to be an expert on the subjects that I'm an expert at, and it's very aware of what I've written before. So if I click in there, it immediately goes to a screen which has a start button. So I can click start and it will now ask me a series of questions. This all happens through, if I show you where it is, if I edit this, it's got a very specific mission profile. And that mission profile is to press start. It's being trained on a bunch of different files that I've loaded in here to tell it about. And it asks very specific questions in a very specific order. Things such as what I'd like to write about today, what personal story I want to add to it, then what question do I want to answer that's in this, then who am I writing it for, the small business owner, the solo or sole trader, solopreneur or sole trader, someone who's looking to change their career, or the person who's just starting their career. They're the 4 main cohorts that I write for. And do I want to write a post or do I want to write an article? Because a post is going to be between 100 and 300 words, but an article is going to be about 1,200 words. In fact, I don't have it in there at the moment, so a structured, let's add that in, 1,200 word article. And then it's got a set of very, very useful information, some what words you're allowed to use and what words you're not allowed to use. Please excuse the French that's in there. The output should be raw, real, not afraid to drop swear words, but it's only to draw emphasis or express frustration or relief. If there's a decision to be professional and narrative driven, I want it to tell stories. So I've given this a whole bunch of instructions to say, this is what I want you to write like. So when I go into here and I press start, let's go back out to Dante GPT and start it up. It's going to ask me the first question I told it to. That first question being, what do you want to write about today? So I'm going to talk to it because I talk faster than I type. I want to write about the difficulty of coming up with ideas to write about when you're coming to do your social media, because sometimes we just feel like there's a blank page with a flashing cursor and we've got no inspiration. Great, that's it. So that's going to be my first input, my first answer to that question. So this is not like normal ChatGPT. This is ChatGPT that's made for me. I've made this very specifically for my uses. And you can make these as well. If you've got a paid version of ChatGPT, you can do this. You might prefer to use Google Gemini, where you can actually don't have to pay for it to be able to build these, but you have some limits to how many times you can use them. But those limits are pretty generous with Google, rather than with ChatGPT, you run out of them very quickly. So what personal story would like to add this? Oh, have I got some personal stories? Okay, let's start off with that. The other day I was sitting there at the computer and I was tired. I got a really bad night's sleep the night before and, got to bed too late, got up too early, went to the gym, and it felt like all my energy was run out early in the day. So by the time I got to 3 p.m, when everybody else is going into their lunchtime food coma, I was here trying to get creative. Now, 3 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon is not my most creative time of the day. So I needed help with trying to work out how to decide what I was going to write, because tomorrow was coming up quickly. And that means I really needed to come up with some ideas on how I'm going to, manage to be bright and cheerful and helpful in an internet post. So I used a technique called the 3-2-3-5 technique, with 2 topics, 3 values, and 5 questions. And it really changed the way I was able to make it work. So as you're noticing here, I'm having to put in a lot of input. That's why I use the talking feature, not the typing feature, because, the fat fingers that did not take the Mavis Beacon typing course back in the day, it takes me, let's say I type very fast, but it's not very accurate. So now it's saying, okay, what question do I want to answer about this topic? What can I teach about this? What have I noticed about this? This is going to give me a variety of approaches to take. So the first one I'm going to do is, and this is like a really good, example of what you can build for yourself as well, if you want to be able to write something that's much more about you and it's easy for you to write things about. So what I'm going to do is, what can I teach about this? because that's part of what you may be doing if you're writing. And this doesn't just come to writing content for social media. You could be forming a webinar, you could be forming a video you want to do on YouTube, you could be just writing a speech. This can be great for writing a speech. I'm going to aim this towards let's just say the solopreneur, the sole trader, the person who works for themselves, freelancers, those kind of people. And it's saying, do I want to write a post or an article? I'm going to go a post, nice and short and sharp, nothing too long. And because I've trained this to be very much like me, it's doing really well at being like me. The other day I sat down on my computer absolutely wrecked, slept like shit the night before, pushed myself to the gym. At 3 p.m. my brain felt like someone had unplugged it at the wall, because that's exactly when I needed to be creative for tomorrow's content. Perfect timing, right? So it picks up my little ironic humor, it picks up my sarcasm, because I've taught it to do that. Now, it's dropped in a few extra swear words that I probably wouldn't use as much. Like, this is not one I would probably use very often on my public profile. So I might, even on your worst day, I would just take out this swearing. But what I wanted to do was use in my word, because I do swear a little bit, I can be a little bit potty-mouthed. I wanted to make sure it picked up me. I can adjust it to be a little less me when I need it to be. But ultimately, that is a damn good little post. I can take that and I can just say something then, clean up the language a little bit, be more funny without being rude. Now you can see why I talk to my computer and I don't type into it. There we go, without being rude. And then I can clean it up and put it into something which I think are a lot more easy to put in front of the right kind of people. And I'll take out all the swear words and says the same thing. I slept like shit, it says I slept terribly. At the end, it doesn't use the other words. So next time the cursor is blinking at you like it knows something you don't, skip the pressure, use a system that works even on the days when your brain is basically running on decaf vibes. That's cool. I like the feel of that, and it makes a lot of sense to me. So I can expand on that. I can also turn that into things like carousels or anything like that. That can be the basis of something. Turn this into a 5-minute speech. So it will know roughly what the word count is for a 5-minute speech, and it expands my subject with my story into something I can take to a stage. So it's very good at this, the expanding and the contracting and the summarizing and the adding of detail, which it hasn't added any extra stories in there. It's based upon the one story, but it's expanded the input I said. And it's even saying you can put it in the cue cards so I can take them up on stage with me, or we can turn it into a TED style script or something that's more conversational. So usually I do a very TED style presentation. I can then continue that. So that's really using ChatGPT in a much more powerful way. If you've got the free version, you have access to create GPTs over here. You can also explore in the free version other people's GPTs that they've made available for you to use. So if you're looking for something such as, I don't know, a measurement converter or something like that. So let's go measurement. There'll be something in there where they've got automated measurement converters that you can use if that's something you use a lot. I've got several things that I use quite a lot, but mostly the ones that I've made myself. So I made one for a bunch of finance brokers 2 weeks ago in Adelaide, my carousel maker for my content, and Solaluel and Eva are all people I built GPTs for recently. So measurement AI assists with measurements, offers examples of conversions. That's the kind of thing we're looking at. So now that's it for ChatGPT. What does Google Gemini look like? Well, Google Gemini just had a massive, massive upgrade, which allows it to be way more creative than it used to be. As an example of something it will create, I'm going to pop over into my LinkedIn. And lately I've been sort of experimenting with something to post. That's not me looking at that sad face. Sorry, Kerry. It is all about these little cartoons that I've been posting. Now, I don't know how to draw. I'm not good at drawing. I'll make it a bit bigger so you can read what it is. But that script is mine. My ideas. I wanted to be these two people, Jane and Patricia. I want them to be in an office having a conversation. I want it to be a little bit confronting. And I want it to have this title, which is the title of a series that I'm doing of daily comics. Now, I don't draw. So how the heck do I do this? Well, this tool in Google's Gemini, which is basically their version of ChatGPT, allows you to create really good graphics. As an example, I can say, I'm going to load up a photo of myself, my very favorite photo that I've got, which is my headshot. It was very professionally taken by Georgia Politis, who did a massively awesome job on it. What I want to do is put this character in the driver seat of a Ferrari with an excited look on my face, on his face. Let's go his. Turn it to creating an image. And let's say make it a 16:9 ratio, because that's, the width of a computer monitor or a television. Put it on the Pro version, it's going to be a bit better. You get a certain amount of Pro version shots at this, but you don't need to use the Pro version to be able to do these kind of things. So it's a great photo of me, got lots of clarity in it, so it's going to pick up quite good at picking up the angles. It understands that I'm bald, I'm not skinny, so it's going to make some assumptions. So if I was viewing this from behind, it would go, well, that's the looking behind the bald head of someone who's got a bit of heft to him, and it's very, very good at doing that. But it also is very good at changing the facial expression of the face that's there. So it's validating the details, it's going through that, and now very quickly has come up with this. Behind the wheel of a Ferrari, looking very excited, but with my arms closed. I don't know who's driving. Obviously not me. It must be Elon Musk driving my Tesla Ferrari. So that's the kind of thing you can do, and that's pretty accurate to what I look like. Like, I'm not going to say that doesn't look like me. It does. That's a face I would pull. I think his teeth are a bit nicer than mine, though. I've got good teeth, but his are sensational. And that's the kind of things you can start producing, so that when I go to something like LinkedIn and I want to go, you know what, I want to create a post that has me throwing my hands in the air and, showing the world that I'm frustrated with the research I've been doing lately, or I'm, if I've got imposter syndrome, that's an example of one, pulling a face. Because it's not imposter syndrome if you are one, and that's me presenting on how to be a migrant woman in business in 2026. Or one other I did recently, which was me on a treadmill. Not too far off me. I'm a little bit chubbier up front than he is, though. So, but hey, it took 5 kilos off me. I'm not going to complain about that. This, for instance, here was a photo of a bunch of tradies in the toolbox talk before they go to start work, with a woman foreperson who's guiding them, and that was completely generated on that same tool. So you can actually do some really smart things. That's not. I bought that at the Green Out Craft Fair on the weekend for my brother. That photo there of me doing a podcast, that's fake, not me. It's just using that same thing I did, and it got the bald head pretty much right to my shape. And that's me being frustrated on research and writing a book that I never ever used, and then I pulled a face. So using exactly the same issue, the same image, it's just sort of made up a few tattoos that I don't have, and it's given me a wedding ring too. Okay, there's hope for me yet, Mum. So that's the sort of things it can do without it being too messy, and that's all using this one. Now, one I've done for my cartoons, for example, I've created a gem, and a gem is just like a ChatGPT, GPT, or project. I've pre-programmed it to do specific things, such as, here's my edit. It's going to show you what my instructions are. There's a fair few of them. I've trained it on what the title needs to be, the logo. I've trained it on the style of 3 previous ones I made, and said, okay, this is the style I'm looking for. So I said, you must follow this sequence, Australian English, use this title, give it a signature of that name at the final panel. So things like that, but it's also, here's the sequence. Who are the 2 characters you wish to use? Ask the contents of panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, panel 4, panel 5, panel 6. Put it all together using the Nano Banana Pro to produce a 6-panel comic in this particular ratio. I'm going to change that to 3 to 4 because I want it to fit better into Instagram. And it must follow those instructions. So I update that, and I can go into there once it's updated, and I begin that process. It asks the questions, I put the input in, and off it goes. So this is that same thing. It's using a tool which is general in nature and telling it to do a very specific thing for me. I've also, that writing GPT I showed you before of me, the Dante one, I've done another version of over here. It's better. I've trained it on more of my material. I've scanned my LinkedIn profile so it knows exactly how I write and the topics I write on. It really understands who I am. So it's actually even better. So let's start the chat. Let's see what it does. Let's create a comic. I'm going to run out of time if I don't hurry up. I've got to get through a lot of tools. So in here, it'll go start. and it begins that process. It's now going to ask those questions. The first one being, who are the two people we're talking to? So I reckon we're going to have Anne here. Anne is the host of a Friday lunchtime webinar. So we've got Anne, host of a Friday lunchtime webinar, and then there's Dante, the guest, who is teaching people nonsense. There we go. And then it'll ask me what I want into the first panel. So this is how I basically, on a daily basis, create my cartoon. So I still have to come up with the idea of what I want in there. Usually I base it off conversations I've had, all the silly things I've seen people do on social media. So panel 1 is going to be Anne. And now our guest, Dante St. James. Panel number 2, Dante. Thanks, Anne. Hopefully you're not too tired after lunch. And then we're going to switch to panel 3, which is going to be shot of the attendees online on Zoom, looking tired and bored. In panel 3. Panel 4, what are you going to put in there? Right now, we're going to learn all about ChatGPT and how you can use it. Panel 5. The first thing is don't use ChatGPT. And panel 6, shot of all the attendees cheering and celebrating. And now it's going to build my cartoon. So it's going to build that cartoon with that conversation, that whole happening. And that's going to be my cartoon that I can put up next Saturday. So I think I'm up to next Friday I've created, so it'll be next Saturday's one. So it takes a moment just to do that. Not too long though, less than a minute. And it'll pump out that. It's now loading the right tool for it. Analyzing the structure. What I might do is throw out a bit of code and I'll just tell it to create that. Any minute now. No, it's just going to create it. It knows what it's doing. There we go. Dante is looking handsome. And he's got a suntan. All right, there we go. And now I guess Dante St. James. Thanks, Anne. Hopefully you're not too tired after lunch. Everyone's falling asleep. Right now we're going to learn about ChatGPT and how you can use it. The first thing is, don't use ChatGPT. Everyone's going, yay! And there we go. We've got a cartoon done. Now, obviously, I'll probably put a bit more thought into my cartoon to do that. How would you apply this? Well, it's one of those things where you can send out, that little Friday wrap up of what you've done with your team. Instead of sending out that boring email that says this person's away next week, that person's away, you can have a virtual host in a comic presenting that information for you. So that could be a little bit of fun. And you can also, if I wanted to have a persistent character called Dante who looked like me but in a cartoon, I would then load in the instructions in that particular set of instructions. I would load in a reference saying, here's the photo of the guy who's Dante, whenever Dante is called. So I'll load in that. I'll do it now. Let's load it in. My headshot, the rules, whenever a character is called Dante, refer to the attached headshot as inspiration for that character. So that way, next time I want to have one based upon me, it's going to do a cartoon version of me. There's a little bit of fun in there if I ever want to insert myself properly instead of being a very handsome African-American man, which I do not object to at all. Probably has a lot more fun than I do. So that's a little bit of Gemini. If you're using Copilot, for instance, in your business, particularly if in government, this is pretty much all the same stuff. You load in files as reference to what you want to do. You can generate an image, create an image of, and then I can load up myself, create an image of this person presenting to a group of business people, and it will do much the same kind of thing. Not quite the same degree of accuracy and realism as what the Google tool will do, but it's also still pretty good. So it's bringing the boardroom to life with a bold presentation. I didn't tell it to do that, but it's decided it's going to take the context a bit further. So it's going to take a little bit of a couple of moments to render that out. Not as a cartoon, unfortunately, but you can actually get it to make a cartoon version of yourself. This is using ChatGPT's image maker, which is way, way slower than Google's. Google's is really, really quick and snappy, whereas this one's a little bit slower. Here we go. That doesn't look anything like me straight off the top. He looks 10 years younger, or he's learned how to use Botox properly. Let's have a look. So it's got this guy presenting. It's definitely not me. So that whole persistent character thing, not as good in Copilot and ChatGPT as what it is in Google. Google takes the exact photo and turns that exact person in there. Could be related to me a little bit, but to be honest, I think he's a little cuter than me. Oh, he's also about another 6 months into the gym journey than I am too. And much better tattoos. So it gives you an idea, but it's a little bit cartoony. It's not as realistic as the other one was. We convert back to, that one I did before, which is the put this character in the driver's seat. That's a lot more photographic and sweaty and very freckly too. Where'd all those freckles come from? But it actually picked up a lot of my features, including my wrinkles and my grey beard hairs as well. Whereas this one has kind of idealized me a little bit. And give me a great chest. I'll claim that. Claude, very much the same, but this is really more a writing tool and a coding tool. So I won't go too deep into Claude because it's one of those ones where if you know Claude and you use Claude, you probably know what you're doing in there. It's very, very good at doing some research. It's very, very good at doing some rewriting of things. It's got quite a good handle on human style writing. The only difference is though that so have all the others now. So it's no longer standing aside, but it is very good with building interactive guides to things. Perplexity is your research tool. So I can say, for instance, do some research on the amount of, let's just say, sea cucumber exports from Australia. I've completely stuffed up my typing, but thankfully these tools know what I'm talking about. So it's gone to 20 sources of information that I can look at and see what they actually are. There are lots of really good sources in there, and it gives me a synthesis of that information based upon those sources that it also references. So every bit of information it's referencing. This for me is the best of the research tools because it is very strict on getting its information from sources rather than getting it from just its own knowledge base. It goes outside to get the details and then comes back inside very, very quickly and synthesizes that into something readable. That's on the pro version. You're going to have limits to the amount of sources on the free version. Free version will be about 3 to 5 sources to look at. In that case, it did 20 sources, and here they all are. I can look at every single source in a list, and I can then go back and say, so if I want to say, oh, these are pretty good actually. So if there's any source in there that I think is actually pretty crappy, this T Ridge, whatever it is, I might say, well, I don't like that source. Don't use that source and replace with another source. And it can go in there. So for university students who are using ChatGPT, they should be using this, to be honest, because it's much, much better at finding great sources. And it can also then look at, if I go down here, find it, when you're asking a question, you can actually specify where you want to get the information from. So I've got deep research, which will go into much more depth with that. But down here, I can choose a model that I want to use. So I can use ChatGPT. Whoops, go back. Didn't want it to do that. Go on, back. Where are you going, buddy? There we go. I can choose the model I want to use. So I can use ChatGPT 5.1 or Google's Gemini 3 Pro, which is the new version, which I also like for its ability to write really good research for me. Or Claude Sonnet 4.5, the most recent version they've got as well. And you can also then, specify you only want to use specific places for research. So while search is enabled and deep research is enabled, you can then specify only use academic and government sources, don't use blogs. And that way you get a bit more quality out of your search for what you want. So that's the big guys. They pretty much, most of them act the same. Perplexity is a very good research guide. Gemini is very good for making fun things. Copilot, it does a few things, but not quite as well. But is the one that a lot of your IT teams are kind of preferring, because it does tie in very much to your Microsoft 365 account. This is on the free version, by the way, that I did that on. So imagine on the pro version, it's going to do a little bit better. Gamma for me is where the game changes. Let's just say over on, I'm going to use ChatGPT. I'm using ChatGPT to do a little bit of research. Give me some research on sea cucumber exports. You know what? I can just use Perplexity. Let's just do the search I just did on Perplexity. Do some research on Perplexity. I'm going to output this. So I'm going to go here, copy it. And I'm going to go over to this thing called Gamma. Gamma creates presentations. I'm going to create a new presentation. I'm going to generate the information in there based upon this information over 20 different slides in a default traditional 16:9 shape. And I'm going to give it a bit of styling information. So let's see what this styling information, I want it to be fairly concise. I don't want it to be overdone. Australian English, yes, it's picked up that I want to do that. Do it as part of, let's do it as part of Tourism Central Australia's style guide. That'll do. Back up to maybe 20 cards. Let's generate. And this is going to create us the fastest slide deck you've ever built in your life. I've already fed in certain brand guides in here. So Headspace brand guides in there, Tourism Central Australia, my own business's brand guides are in there using my fonts, my styles, my logos, all that sort of thing. And the style that's been agreed to. And we have now got, I don't know if that's what a sea cucumber looks like. I've never really seen one, but you can replace that with image. That's an AI generated image. We can replace that with real images from elsewhere if you wish, because that's probably looking a little stylized there. But this is creating you the fastest ever slide deck you've ever produced. Bang. All that there. Export destinations. And this is based on the research that we did in that in Perplexity. So it hasn't expanded it, it's just kept it the same. And we have now got a 20 slide deck, illustrated, referenced, and pretty pictures that may or may not be accurate according to what they actually look like. But look at this. This is doing a great job of it. So future outlooks and challenges. And for those of you who are going, well, this is great, it's in your Gamma thing, but I need to use this on Microsoft's PowerPoint. Well, great. We can go to Share and export it to PowerPoint. And that now becomes a PowerPoint presentation that you can then import all of that and just adjust it to put your brand guidelines and your templates around that. So that way you've done all the research work, you've done all the layout that you want to do. Now all you need to do is just pick that up in PowerPoint and off you go. And you can then make the changes you need to. This one does have a free layer, allows you to do a couple of them. I pay for this one because quite simply I do 6 or 7 presentations a week. You can imagine how many hours that has now saved me. Like a ridiculous, I used to pay someone in the Philippines to make these slide decks for me to save me a few hours a week. It was taking me 6 to 7 hours a week to prepare all these slides. It now takes, well, you saw how long that took. All I got to do really is go back through that and check the facts, swap out some images. I'm not happy with those images, and off I go. And then we're done. So that one is a phenomenal tool. Canva, you would know from building all sorts of things of your own. What you probably didn't know is that Canva has a lot of AI tools built into it. So I'm just going to do a quick social media post because I know we're running out of time, or have run out of time probably by now. How are we going for time, Anne? Am I running way over yet?
I'm doing great. Everything is still good. You've still got 20 minutes,
Fantastic.
but we do want some
Oh,
questions at the end. So you got plenty
awesome.
of time. Don't
Great.
stress or hurry.
Should be done in about another 5 minutes, so give us plenty of time to ask those questions. So let's just say I've picked up a photo that I've uploaded. That's a photo of, let's see, something which is, let's pick up this guy. So in this photo, which is an AI generated photo of me looking out over a lake. I think I tried to match it to Lake Bennett, but Lake Bennett doesn't look that good. I want to then make that a bit wider. I want to grab more of it. So what I can do is go edit, and there's these AI tools such as the Magic Expand. So Magic Expand means that I can take that whole image and expand it out further. So let's just say, so I'll get out of there for the second. This was sitting in the middle of the screen, and I wanted it to expand out to all that without me going literally like that. I want it to fill in the detail that would continue on from every side of that image. I'll go Magic Expand, and then I want the whole page to be filled. Click on Expand. Now the free version will give you a crack at this, but the paid version again gives you multiple uses of this. And it's going to take that photo of me and expand around it so that it's increased what's around there. The trees, the window frame, the wall that's going to, the rest of the table, the rest of the coffee cup, all that stuff. It's expanded out. So that's then figured out what it reckons is going to be in there, and it's given me a much more expanded photo. Particularly useful if you've got a portrait size photo that you've taken on the phone and you want to expand it out to a square or a 16:9 ratio. That can be really useful. Now, it used to be really crappy. I never used to use it because it was so bad. This has got way better. Might have overdone the flowers and the plants over there in the corner, but that's very small detail. The rest of it looks okay. That's usable for me. So that's one of the tools you can use for that. The other thing is probably the favorite thing I've ever used on here is the background remover. That's AI that does that, removes all that background. So now I can put that on any color background I like. So let's just make it a nice, this is nice. Put on whatever background I want, and then create maybe some kind of social media post out of this. You start to see what some of my creative process looks like. And go, focus is everything. I'll take that, and I've created myself maybe a social graphic or some kind of thing that I want to put on a poster or a card or something, and it's now removed all the stuff I didn't need on there. I can also expand him so he sits a bit on there, change my position so it goes slightly over the text. That's what I wanted. So now we've got that kind of thing. So the AI has taken out the background, it's expanded what was around there as well, so I've got a bit more detail in the photo. There's a ton of other things you can do in AI on here. That's just a really quick look at what it looks like. You can play around, you can get it to, for instance, I can look at this and go, well, I really need to do something with that photo. I'm going to ask Canva to brighten up the subject of this image with more direct light from the front. And that will allow me then to take that image, and then it's going to put a bit more brightness in there because he's looking a little dark in that very bright background. It has to think about what it's going to be doing. It finalize it, and now it's going to give me any second now. It can be a little slow, the Canva AI features, but they are very powerful. And now it's starting to do that. It's going to show me a preview of what it's doing, and then gives me the option to then add that to the image before it goes and does it for me. This is kind of like the stuff that Adobe's doing in Photoshop and in Lightroom. Canva's now doing it on their tools as well. Again, you get a limited hit of these in the free version, but when you've got the paid version, I think it's about $20 AUD. So there we go. I added that in. Now it's done something really good, which is it brightened it up. It's also done something really bad. That ain't me. So that's where you go, okay, I will probably do that kind of thing in that Google Nano Banana tool, because for me, it's more important that it gets the accuracy of the image right rather than playing with the brightness. But it's done exactly what I wanted it to do. but it's completely changed the tattoos and the person that's in there because it's using ChatGPT's version, the same one we used in Copilot. So that's the sort of thing you can do in there. I limit it really to the background removals and to expanding images and to things like cleaning it up and adding extra filters and other things. But you can do a lot more other things as well. The final tool I'll show you is called Napkin AI. Napkin for me is a way of visualizing data. So if I was to take some of this research from our perplexity search on sea cucumbers and I go to create a new one, I'm going to delete all that stuff. I don't need any of that stuff. So out you go, buddy. All that extra stuff I'm not going to use. Come on, bud. Let's create a new one. Undo. Create me a brand new one. I'm going to put in some information there. Got all those extra. Go. I'm going to get everything out. I'll delete this whole thing from the past. Sorry, it just doesn't allow me to very quickly delete whole things. There we go. And then what I want to do is pick out the information I want to visualize. By visualize, I mean creating the things like mind maps and all that sort of thing. So I'm going to look for a bit of information. The commercial harvesting, key export regions and destinations. I want to have this information in there. Click this little lightning. And what it's now going to do is magically create a visualization of that information. So it's going to do it in forms of, like this. Look at that. That's given us a visualization of that. But what we can also do is play with that style and make it look different. So we can look at the different styles. We can go that one. If I was to take this one, I can then pick out the color range I want for that. That can fit something that's more according to the brand I do. I can also define what my brand colors and fonts are, so then it will be matched towards what I'm getting. And once I get that, let's just say this is my brand view, I can then export that as an image to import into a slide deck, into a report, into a website if I wish to do it, even as a PDF that I wanted to send someone as an attachment on an email, or as a PowerPoint slide as well. You do get a fairly generous free version of this, which I'm still using. I haven't paid for it yet. If this is something you'll use every week, like multiple times a week, as a lot of people who are visualizing data will do, this is a great one to pay for. And it's about, I think last time I looked at it, it's about that $20 US a month. So again, I look at it in terms of time saving rather than in terms of cost. Will it save me more than $20 a month worth of my time? Oh God, yeah, it will. And so if I was using this more, this is something I would do. And then if I go, well, that's not really the one I want, I can get rid of it and I can start again from another piece of the data I want to take in and go, okay, where's the rest of the data? Here's the data sources you can use. Probably not that one. The export market dominated by Greater China, including Hong Kong. So let's pick up that information. Let's visualize that. So you can just copy and paste something in from a report. You can take something from a web source that you found and it'll do that same thing. So this is what it's done. Do we want to do it as a brainstorm visualization? Do we want to do it as a mind map? I used to do quite a lot of these mind maps. That's going to redo the mind map. Come on, buddy. Where'd you go? Undo. I just need to delete that. So sometimes these things do have a bit of a spit. There we go. Let's start that again. As you can see, it's pretty quick when it redraws it. There we go. Back to that one. We can then go to business framework. So if you've got a SWOT analysis, so this will do a SWOT analysis based upon the information it just picked up. So this is where the AI becomes really, really powerful. So SWOT analysis can be high value, strong demand in Asia, weakness, reliance on regional trade, threats, other suppliers in Asia, opportunities, expand trade networks. Boom, it's just done it for you in lots of different colors and styles. So this is now up to date. If there was a change to the data in here that we just drew that from, it would then, if we go to refresh it, that little cycle there, it will then refresh this with the new data. This one to me is possibly the one that people, when I show them, they go, holy crap, this is so useful. So this is the one that a lot of people go, yep, I will use this one. And then again, we can then share it out, PDF, PNG for an image, and then a PowerPoint slide or SVG if you want to use that on something that needs to be printed out, perhaps. Oh, there was a lot in there, wasn't there? How in the heck are you going to remember all this stuff? Well, that's it. You don't have to. This is where you get to ask some questions. So I'll head over to you, Anne, because I'm sure you've probably got one to start off with.
That's fantastic, Dante. I learned heaps from that. And like you said, I think there's a lot of tools that I'm going to be able to use like really well from that. And I think you answered my question, which is, exporting that information out, and particularly those pictures and that
Yeah.
sort of thing, so that you can pop them easily into a PowerPoint presentation or whatever. So I think that's covered off on me, but I would love to hear from others. Has anyone got a question? Chantel, jump on in.
Hi, Dante. My question is a little bit general, but I just wanted your opinion. So when you search something on Google now, you get an AI overview. I just wondered if that is potentially affecting website owners' analytics, because no one's going to that source anymore. They're just reading that capture rather than going to their websites.
Oh, great question, and absolutely true. The whole SEO thing of, the capturing traffic to go to websites is highly affected by this. In fact, I saw a report from earlier this year which was saying that that feature has contributed to at least a 20% drop in traffic for most people who are looking for traffic. But then there's others like me. I've picked up traffic from it. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I create a lot of stuff that's optimized for those kind of searches. What we've found is, for instance, if you're providing very generalized kind of stuff, say you had a recipe site for cooking, and there's 50 other sites that have almost that same recipe, there's not really a great deal of difference between you and the other sites that do it. But if you've got very niche information that's very specific, that's stuff that's your research, you haven't just distilled all the research from other people, and you've got unique content, and that's the key, unique content, those people seem to be picking up a lot more because they've got something very specific for a niche. So rather than big clumps of places that have generalized information, we're seeing a lot of help for those who have got very niche specific stuff, especially for a specific location. So for instance, if you're looking at how can I increase SEO for my website, wouldn't be as useful for these AI searches as, I'm in Darwin, how can I be found by more clients on my website? And if you've got something specific on your website that is answering that, here's how to increase your search visibility in Darwin, or in Catherine, or in Townsville, or in Sydney, that is then rewarded with much better results. Just some of the early, just some of the early observations we're seeing in that.
Thank you.
Amazing question. Thanks, Chantel. Andrew's got his hand up, Dante.
Yeah, thanks, Dante. That's really exciting stuff there, and a lot of powerful tools. I've just got a question just in relation to paid subscriptions. So, for instance, if you were to subscribe to Perplexity, would you need to subscribe to ChatGPT, or are they complementary, or does one overtake another?
So Perplexity actually includes access to the abilities of ChatGPT's model, but not ChatGPT itself. So if you get Perplexity, it can use the ability of ChatGPT to be able to summarize and to work with information that you're putting into it. So for me, the reason I would use ChatGPT is because the ability to create those GPTs on my own. You do also have the ability to do that in Perplexity, which is it's in what they call Spaces. So Spaces and Perplexity, the paid version, allow you to do that yourself as well. Same way that Gemini's got gems. The problem I see is that depending on what week it is and what release has gone on, they jump between who is the really super tool at the moment. Perplexity is falling quite a bit behind, but they've got a different approach. They're just saying, we don't really want to build our own model. We'll use the best models out there. What we want to be is the best research model, the best information model. We want to be the new search engine. But it still allows you to do things like writing forming writing that's based upon your voice, it still does that really, really well. What it won't do is create the great pictures. It won't be able to handle a lot of the like visual data representation and that sort of thing, but it is very good at coding. It can do coding because it's using other tools to do that coding for you. So the answer is yes, if you're not doing very specific things that the ChatGPT and Gemini are very good at. You're doing it mainly for research, for bringing together sources to be in a readable format that synthesizes all those different bits of data into something really cool. Great at that. But if there's specific things you do in those other tools that you go, I don't think Perplexity is going to carry that out, it's up to you to choose which one you want.
That's great. Thank you.
I do them all because I'm an idiot.
Do we have any other questions for Dante?
I had one on the chat.
Hey, Samantha.
So I put one on the chat. Thanks very much for the great presentation. Yeah, it was really awesome. I'm working on Indigenous engagement, and then I did a Indigenous culture intellectual property course, and it sort of made me think I really want to respect that and make sure that I don't breach anything, because there were some concerns about AI reading information that was sensitive, and just because it's on the internet doesn't necessarily mean that. Do you know what I mean? Like, how I know
exactly what you mean. Yeah, so when you're using not just Indigenous knowledge, but any sort of IP that's quite sensitive, you don't want the models learning about that. You want to work on it, but you don't want the models learning about it. I'll just reshare my screen and show you a very quick fix for that. Here in, say, ChatGPT, if you're using this particularly, you would go into your settings down the left, into your personalization or settings, and then where it has here the data controls, I've got the improve the model for everyone switched off, so it does not see anything or keep anything that I do. I've told it you don't get to keep anything I do. Now, I'm trusting that they're not going to do that. But the safer way to do it is to use things like projects in here. So I'd have a project where I load in, let's just say my safe space. And in this project, I would load in the materials I want to keep private and safe and away from everything. And then inside there, I would ask my questions. So I'm not asking it out on the open question and answer form. I'm asking it in here. So I can add the files that I want to reference. And in here, there's nothing to indicate that there's any sort of problem with that. This is where it's actually going to be safe. Now, in Perplexity, for example, in a space, you create a space. So say, for instance, in here, there's a tender thing or an EcoBU bench, which is a bit of private stuff. I've got private files in here, which are all used. So 8 sources of files over here that are not to be shared. Now, automatically in this one, because I'm using a paid enterprise version, it's about $42 Australian per seat. This will not share anything out there, and it won't even keep my information unless I specify for more than 30 days. So I won't be able to, anything that I was to load up into any of these chats, it gets rid of the source of that in 30 days, unless I've saved it in my special repository that's highly private and can't be used anywhere else. So you just got to be very mindful of the programs you're using. Gemini is very good at it, but doesn't necessarily use Google. Not everyone's got a trust with Google. OpenAI can be a little bit of a wild card, but as long as you've turned off that setting for data controls, set that to off, then you're a lot safer. It's not sharing anything you've loaded up or any conversations you've had or any of your materials you've loaded in with anything outside of your account. That's what you want in there. So that's going to make life a lot easier for you. Probably the most important question I didn't cover off was how to keep these things private. So thanks for that, Sam.
Thank you.
Awesome. I reckon we're out of time, Dante. I'm going to ask Chantel to put the survey in the chat box for us. If you do have a minute to fill out the survey. We'd really value your views and thoughts on today's session. We'll obviously pass it on to Dante as well, so he can pick up on anything that you might have found interesting or valuable or useful, or something that he might like to improve on his presentation as well. I hope that that's not the case, but who knows, Dante, there might be something.
Use less jargon. Stop using photos of yourself. Couldn't stand looking at those dumb photos of him anymore.
But it was delightful to have you. Thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for the LinkedIn. You can check out Dante's LinkedIn there on the in the chat as well. But thank you for today's session, Dante. It's always amazing. It's such a pleasure to have you, and to everyone else, thanks for coming and spending some time and developing skills. It's always invaluable, everything that we learn. And I'll look forward to seeing you all next year. But have a wonderful weekend. Take care, everyone. See ya.